What if everything you thought you knew about the birthplace of Jesus was only part of the story? For centuries, we've been told that Bethlehem cradled the most significant arrival in human history, the night when divinity stepped into the world of men. But what if this narrative, as sacred as it feels, is only a veil hiding a deeper, more cosmic truth? What if the real story isn't just about where Jesus was born, but about why and how his arrival on Earth was orchestrated on a scale far greater than our traditions have allowed us to imagine? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. According to the astonishing insights of Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, the birth of Jesus wasn't simply a matter of historical geography. It was a universal event, an act of spiritual engineering, carefully prepared in the realms beyond our sight. Bethlehem, as we know it, may have served a symbolic role, but Cayce's visions suggest that the actual location of this sacred moment was chosen for reasons rooted in energy, vibration, and cosmic alignment. This wasn't just the start of a life, it was the activation of a frequency meant to ripple through all humanity. Has this ever happened to you? You hear a story so often, so consistently, that you stop questioning it. It becomes part of the background, woven into the fabric of what you accept as truth. The birthplace of Jesus is one of those stories. But what if what you've been told is only the beginning, and the real answer lies hidden in places the Gospels never clearly describe? What you're about to discover might surprise you, not because it denies faith, but because it may expand it beyond anything you've imagined. Cayce described the birth not merely as an earthly occurrence, but as a descent of higher consciousness into matter, a universal spiritual activation that required a specific location where celestial and earthly energies converged in perfect harmony. This point, he claimed, was not chosen by chance, nor dictated by tradition, but identified by spiritual intelligences who had been preparing for this moment for centuries. Imagine a place where the very fabric of the earth vibrated in sync with the cosmos, a sacred intersection of power designed to receive the soul of the Christ. When we think of Bethlehem, we think of shepherds, a manger, and a guiding star. But Cayce invites us to look deeper. Could that star have been more than a guiding light, perhaps an astronomical key, pointing to a hidden location known only to a select few? Could the stable be a metaphor, concealing the true nature of a temple or energy center where Jesus' arrival was sheltered from forces that would have opposed it? Stay with me until the end, because as we peel back these layers, we'll begin to see why this mystery was so carefully guarded. Cayce's revelations suggest that the birth of Jesus was more than the fulfillment of prophecy. It was a precise, deliberate act to awaken humanity's dormant connection to the divine. He tells us that Christ's coming was designed not just to teach or to heal, but to anchor a light so powerful that it could transform the destiny of the entire planet. And if that's true, then the real question becomes, why has this truth been hidden for so long? Was it to protect it, to keep it safe until we were ready? Or was it because the magnitude of this event could shatter the boundaries of traditional belief? In a moment, we're going to step into the heart of Cayce's vision and explore the clues he left about this hidden birthplace, clues that may forever change how we understand the most celebrated birth in history. Join me here for more journeys into hidden truths. Just hit that subscribe button. When you think about the power of a story repeated for centuries, it's easy to see how it becomes unshakable truth in the minds of millions. Bethlehem, the city of David, carries that weight, rooted in tradition, layered with prophecy, and reinforced by generations of belief. But Edgar Cayce pushes us to ask an unsettling question. Was this image built as much for the hearts of the faithful as it was for the agendas of those shaping religion's narrative? Behind the scenes of history, political and religious forces have always understood the influence of symbolism. A name, a place, a prophecy fulfilled. These are the tools that shape mindset and secure unity under a shared story. Yet sometimes, that unity comes at the cost of complexity, of the hidden truth that might reveal an even more extraordinary reality. For Cayce, Bethlehem may have been a chosen word, not a chosen location, a placeholder that kept eyes fixed on a familiar landmark, while the real birthplace remained in shadow, protected, concealed, preserved for a time when humanity could handle the magnitude of what truly happened. Think about the impact of this possibility. It's not about diminishing the sacredness of the Nativity. It's about elevating it to a level far beyond stone streets and a humble stable. The true site, Cayce suggests, was selected for its energetic resonance, a place where the fabric of the earth itself vibrated in harmony with the rhythms of the cosmos. This idea forces us to step outside the comfort zone of inherited belief. We have to picture an ancient world where spiritual geography was as real as political borders, where certain points on the planet acted like tuning forks, amplifying divine intention into the material world. The choice of such a location wouldn't be arbitrary. It would require knowledge passed down through civilizations, guarded by priesthoods, mystics, and those few who understood that the earth is more than soil and stone. It is an instrument, and when played at the right moment, in the right place, it can open portals between the seen and the unseen. Cayce believed that those who controlled the narrative knew exactly how powerful this understanding could be. Perhaps that's why the story needed to be simplified, transformed into a digestible image for the masses. A manger is easy to picture. Shepherds are easy to love, but a convergence of celestial forces, sacred geometry, and ancient energy lines, that's harder to fit into a children's Christmas pageant. And yet that might be the reality, hidden behind layers of metaphor and reinterpreted tradition. Imagine what it would mean if Jesus was born in a location where the Earth's energy currents and the cosmic alignments of the stars worked together as one. It would mean his birth wasn't just a divine intervention, it was the outcome of deliberate preparation, a fusion of spiritual purpose and planetary design. Such an origin shifts the way we see the journey of Christ. It wasn't simply about entering the human story, it was about recalibrating the human story, altering its trajectory from that moment forward. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because Cayce's insights point toward a network of ancient knowledge stretching across continents, connecting civilizations that shared a common understanding of these sacred points. If the truth about Jesus' birthplace has been hidden in this way, what else might have been preserved in secrecy, waiting for the right moment to surface? And more importantly, how might this hidden truth change the way we see not just history, but ourselves? Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." If we see Jesus' birth through Cayce's lens, we begin to understand that it wasn't simply a historical moment frozen in time. It was a precise alignment of forces, a meeting point between heaven and earth carefully prepared long before the first breath was taken. This wasn't a matter of chance or convenience. It was as if the entire planet had been tuned for this event, waiting for the exact instant when cosmic and planetary energies could meet in perfect resonance. Such a moment wasn't just about the arrival of a child, it was about anchoring a divine frequency into the physical world, setting into motion a transformation that would ripple through centuries. Think about it. In our everyday lives, we understand the importance of timing and environment, planting seeds at the right season, launching projects when conditions are favorable. Now imagine applying that same mindset on a universal scale. For Cayce, Jesus' incarnation was the ultimate act of intentionality, the culmination of a plan so vast it bridged dimensions. Every variable was considered: the vibrational field of the chosen place, the celestial movements overhead, even the energy carried by those who would be present in that sacred moment. It was a design meant not just to welcome a life, but to integrate that life seamlessly into both the human and the divine narrative. When we see the birth as a cosmic event rather than just a local one, everything changes. It reframes the mission of Christ from a historical ministry in ancient Judea to a planetary mission woven into the very structure of creation. His presence on earth wasn't just about teaching morality or performing miracles, it was about opening a channel between realms, reconnecting humanity to its original source of light. And that means the place itself mattered in ways we can barely begin to grasp. Cayce's revelations suggest that this location was selected with a precision we can only compare to the way Ancient builders aligned monuments to solstices and star paths. It wasn't simply a birthplace, it was a spiritual interface, a point where the density of the material world could safely hold the vibration of a higher consciousness without distorting it. This concept pushes us to rethink not just where Jesus may have been born, but why that exact point was chosen over any other. Behind the scenes of the familiar nativity story, there is a hidden truth about sacred geography. Just as certainly, mountain peaks are revered for their energy or ancient temples are built on ley lines. This site was chosen for its ability to transmit and sustain the Christ energy in its purest form. It was a portal, both literal and symbolic, where the divine could step into human form without losing its essence. If these ideas resonate with you, subscribe and keep exploring with me. If that's the case, then the tradition of Bethlehem, while beautiful and powerful in its own right, may be more of a symbolic marker than a factual pin on the map. Symbols have the power to unite people, to anchor belief, but they can also be the veil that hides a more profound reality until the right moment. Perhaps that moment is now. Perhaps we are finally ready to explore the possibility that the most celebrated birth in history happened in a place unknown to the masses, chosen not for prophecy as it was written, but for prophecy as it was lived. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding the criteria for this sacred selection leads us into a network of knowledge that stretches back through forgotten civilizations, guarded by those who knew that certain truths had to be protected until humanity's consciousness could bear their weight. Write in the comments, "I'm also on this path." When Cayce spoke of Egypt as the true stage for Christ's arrival, he wasn't painting it as a mere backdrop of ancient grandeur. He described it as a living matrix of spiritual energy, a land where thousands of years of accumulated wisdom had been carefully preserved, waiting for the precise moment it could be used again. Egypt was more than a place. It was a vault, holding the keys to cosmic knowledge passed down from civilizations even older, some of which have faded entirely from our recorded history. To Cayce, this wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate preparation, as if the land itself had been consecrated for an event that would forever alter the trajectory of human consciousness. Think of the pyramids, the temples of Saqqara, or the hidden chambers of Luxor, not merely as relics of a bygone era, but as active instruments designed to interact with the stars and the subtle forces of the earth. These places weren't just aligned for beauty or architectural achievement. They were positioned with a precision that modern engineering still marvels at, calibrated to receive and transmit energy across time and space. In Cayce's view, these monuments were more than silent witnesses. They were participants in the ritual of incarnation, shaping the vibrational environment so that a soul of Christ's magnitude could enter our world intact. And there, within this sacred geometry, waited the spiritual fraternity he described, a gathering of advanced beings whose awareness stretched far beyond the limitations of ordinary perception. Some walked the earth in human form, living quietly among the people. Others operated from higher planes, unseen but deeply present. Together, they formed a network of guardians, protectors, and guides, ensuring that every element of the plan remained aligned with divine intention. Their role wasn't passive. They monitored energy flows, safeguarded the physical and spiritual conditions of the chosen site, and, when necessary, shielded the process from any interference that could distort its purpose. This wasn't the birth of a man in isolation. It was a coordinated act involving multiple dimensions of reality. To imagine this is to step far outside the version of the Nativity many of us grew up with. Instead of a modest stable lit by the glow of a single star, picture a temple chamber resonating with ancient chants, its walls carrying inscriptions that echoed the oldest truths known to humanity. Imagine the air thick with the presence of unseen forces, a stillness so profound it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. This is the environment Cayce invites us to see, one chosen not for tradition or political narrative, but for its perfect resonance with the mission about to unfold. Behind the scenes, this brotherhood of watchers operated with an understanding of time that defies our linear thinking. For them, past, present, and future converged in this one event. They weren't just protecting a baby. They were safeguarding the potential transformation of an entire species. And perhaps this is why the truth of the location had to be concealed for so long. Not out of secrecy for secrecy's sake, but because certain knowledge, if revealed prematurely, can be misunderstood, diminished, or even misused. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if Egypt truly held the energetic cradle for Christ's arrival, then its temples, its alignments, and its hidden chambers may still carry the imprint of that moment, and unlocking that could reveal more than just history. It could point us toward the very mechanisms of spiritual awakening that the ancients guarded so fiercely. Write in the comments, "I can feel the connection." Cayce's description of the birthplace paints a scene unlike anything in the familiar nativity image. This was no modest shelter thrown together out of necessity. It was a deliberate creation, a protected temple crafted with one purpose in mind: to serve as the perfect vessel for divine manifestation. Every stone, every orientation, every line etched into its walls was placed with intention, aligning the physical space to the invisible geometry of the cosmos, the air within. Such a place would not have been ordinary air. It would have been charged, vibrating with a purity that shielded the Christ spirit from the distortions and densities of the material world during those first, fragile moments of incarnation. If you enjoy diving deeper into the mysteries, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. This wasn't merely a building. It was a bridge between worlds, a structure designed to hold a frequency so rare that only a handful of places on Earth could sustain it. And within its walls, something extraordinary happened. Not just the birth of a child, but the anchoring of a vibration that would ripple across centuries, a pulse that still resonates within the collective consciousness of humanity. To step into such a space would have been to feel the presence of ages past, civilizations long gone, whose wisdom was embedded in every grain of stone. It is here that Cayce draws an astonishing connection, one that links this sacred birthplace to Atlantis, not as a mythical tale but as a real and ancient civilization whose spiritual and technological knowledge was intentionally preserved and carried forward. The temple, he suggested, was part of a lineage of sacred architecture that began in that lost world, designed to merge the wisdom of the ancients with the unfolding mission of the Christ. In this view, the birth of Jesus wasn't the beginning of a story. It was the continuation of one, a handoff of purpose from one great cycle of humanity to the next. Such a place was the result of what Cayce called spiritual and energetic engineering. Imagine tuning an instrument not for sound, but for spirit, adjusting the resonance until it perfectly matches the frequency of a soul whose origin is not of this earth. This was no accident. The design accounted for the movement of the stars, the pull of the Earth's magnetic lines, even the unique energetic fingerprint of the region. It was the culmination of centuries of preparation, executed with precision by those who understood that the environment itself could shape the success of the mission. Behind the scenes of what history recorded as a simple nativity, there was a level of planning that rivaled the most advanced undertakings humanity has ever known. This wasn't just about the moment of birth. It was about securing the conditions for a mission that would unfold over decades, impacting not only the people of that time, but the trajectory of human evolution itself. The temple's design was a message in stone, a silent testament to the cooperation between worlds, civilizations, and dimensions, all united in the goal of bringing a specific consciousness into human form. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if this sacred space truly connected the wisdom of Atlantis to the birth of Christ, then its location, its construction, and the knowledge embedded within it could hold keys to understanding how divine intention is anchored in the physical world, and how that same process might still be happening today. Write in the comments, "I believe the connection is real." Cayce's account of the birth takes us far beyond the familiar image of a single star guiding the Magi through the night sky. What he describes is something far more intricate, a precise and subtle stellar alignment, a kind of cosmic code that could only be deciphered by those who had been trained to read the language of the heavens. This wasn't the dramatic, blazing beacon of the biblical Star of Bethlehem. It was a hidden pattern, woven into the constellations, only visible to the eyes of initiates who understood its meaning. To the untrained observer, the sky on that night might have seemed ordinary. But to the few who knew what to look for, it was a celestial blueprint, signaling the exact time and place where the bridge between heaven and earth would open. The chosen site for this incarnation wasn't simply convenient, it was the very point where the Earth's energies and the cosmic currents met in perfect balance. In sacred geography, such intersections are more than lines on a map. They are living portals, where the boundaries between worlds grow thin, and where higher consciousness can pass into material form without losing its essence. These locations are rare, and they cannot be replicated or moved. They are fixed within the planet's own energy grid, often marked in ancient times by temples, monoliths, or sacred enclosures built to amplify and protect the connection. This understanding is not unique to Cayce's vision. It echoes through the esoteric traditions of Egypt, India, and Mesopotamia, cultures that, despite their differences, shared the belief that avatars, divine messengers, or enlightened beings could only enter the world during rare and powerful alignments. The Vedic texts speak of cosmic yugas and planetary conjunctions that open windows for the descent of higher souls. Babylonian astrologers mapped the skies for centuries, searching for signs of divine intervention. Egyptian priesthoods recorded the harmonies of star and stone, preserving the knowledge of how heaven's movements could be anchored in Earth's architecture. What Cayce offers is the possibility that Jesus' birth was the culmination of such a tradition, a moment planned not just decades, but centuries in advance. The alignment itself was not a random accident of the sky. It was part of a greater orchestration, an agreement between realms. From one perspective, it was astronomy. From another, it was prophecy. And from Cayce's vantage point, it was spiritual engineering at its highest form, the execution of a plan in which even the stars themselves played their part. Behind the scenes, this knowledge would have been guarded by a select group of spiritual adepts, those capable of reading both the heavens above and the energies beneath their feet. They would have known that the chosen place was not simply a location, but a tuning point, resonating in harmony with the alignment above. To them, this was not superstition, but science, an ancient and precise discipline blending cosmic cycles with terrestrial energy, and they would have prepared the site accordingly, ensuring it could hold the frequency required for the descent of such a consciousness. Let's keep uncovering these connections together. Subscribe and be part of the conversation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if this alignment truly marked the gateway for Christ's incarnation, it means the blueprint of his arrival may still be inscribed in the stars, and that the same pattern could one day signal another profound transformation for humanity. Write in the comments, "The sky holds the code." According to Cayce's vision, the Magi were not simply travelers following a miraculous light in the sky. They were initiates, custodians of an ancient science capable of decoding the precise language of the cosmos. What they read that night was not a single star's glow, but a sequence, an astronomical code woven into the positions of the planets, the alignment of constellations, and the rhythm of celestial movement. This was a map hidden in plain sight, visible only to those who knew how to interpret it. And that code, once deciphered, led them not to Bethlehem, but to a hidden location deliberately kept outside the knowledge of the masses. Their journey was one of precision, not chance. Every step, every decision calculated to arrive at the one place on earth prepared to receive this incarnation. But Cayce's revelations take this even further, breaking the boundaries of geography and time. He suggests that while the Magi sought the physical birthplace, each of us carries the potential to discover our own inner birthplace, that sacred point within where Christ consciousness can be awakened. This changes everything. The story stops being solely about an event from 2,000 years ago and becomes an invitation to personal transformation. The same alignment that brought the Christ into the world is mirrored in the alignment we can create within ourselves, where thought, intention, and heart converge to open a channel for divine awareness. When Cayce describes Jesus as a planetary avatar, He's speaking of a being whose existence was not confined by physical laws, someone whose very nature operated across multiple dimensions simultaneously. His birth was not the beginning of life, but the manifestation of light, descending into the density of matter, a conscious, deliberate act by higher realms to anchor a frequency capable of reshaping human destiny. In this light, the stable, the shepherds, and the humble trappings of the Nativity are not the essence of the story. They are the veil over something far more vast and complex. Seeing Jesus as an avatar changes our mindset completely. It suggests that his arrival on Earth was part of a much larger pattern, a movement of consciousness from one plane to another, designed to initiate a shift in humanity's collective path. The term birth becomes symbolic, representing the moment that a higher vibration merged with physical form, creating a bridge that remains open for those willing to walk it. This is where the narrative moves from history into direct relevance for each of us. Because if such a bridge exists, then the question isn't just where it was built, but whether we are prepared to cross it ourselves. The Magi's journey, then, is more than a historical footnote. It is a reflection of the inner journey each seeker must take. They followed signs, navigated through uncertainty, bypassed the obvious, and arrived at a place hidden from common knowledge. In our own lives, this mirrors the moments when we must trust the subtle signals, make decisions that defy popular opinion, and follow an inner compass toward something we can sense, but not yet fully see. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if Jesus' arrival was both a planetary and personal event, then understanding the mechanics of that multidimensional descent could reveal not just how light enters the world, but how it can be consciously awakened within us today. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to find my inner birthplace." Cayce's account reveals that the arrival of Jesus was not a spontaneous miracle, but the result of a preparation so vast in scope it defies our normal sense of time. For centuries, perhaps even millennia, spiritual intelligences had been shaping both the vessel he would inhabit and the energetic environment that would receive him. This was not a matter of simply choosing a suitable family or community. It was a process of aligning bloodlines, purifying intention, and conditioning the very atmosphere of the location, so it could sustain a vibration unlike anything the world had held before. The birthplace itself was not chosen for its visibility or symbolism, but for its resonance. Cayce describes it as a high-frequency vortex, a point where multiple lines of force, both terrestrial and cosmic, converged to create a zone of exceptional stability and purity. Such places are rare, and in ancient times, they were guarded with the utmost secrecy. To the uninitiated, it might have looked like an unremarkable patch of land or a modest structure, but energetically it was alive, humming with the power to shield what was about to occur from the density of earthly vibrations. Without such a space, the descent of a consciousness of that magnitude could have been distorted or diminished, its impact weakened before it even began. If this perspective spoke to you, there's more ahead. Subscribe so we can go further. In this framework, the birth we know from tradition becomes only the surface layer of a much larger event. Cayce presents it as a multidimensional phenomenon, a simultaneous occurrence across multiple planes of existence. In one sense, there was a child born into the physical world, fragile and human like any other. In another sense, there was a vast descent of light into the collective human field, a shift in the energetic architecture of the planet itself. These layers were not separate, but synchronized, each reflecting the other like mirrors in perfect alignment. This is where the story moves from sacred history into something that brushes against the edge of science and metaphysics. If a presence can exist on several planes at once, then the event of incarnation is not just about a body entering life. It's about a consciousness choosing to anchor itself into the physical dimension while remaining fully active in higher realms. It means that while people on Earth saw a birth, beings in other dimensions may have witnessed something entirely different. The expansion of a living bridge connecting their world to ours. Behind the scenes of what appeared as an ordinary human beginning, there was a sophisticated orchestration at work, a coordination between realities that required flawless execution. This was not the kind of plan that could be improvised or rushed. It was the culmination of an unbroken chain of decisions, alignments, and sacred agreements stretching back through ages of human and cosmic history. And it reminds us that the greatest transformations in our world are often the result of forces moving silently, invisibly, behind the curtain of what we call reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if Jesus' presence was truly anchored through a convergence of planes and a carefully prepared vortex, then understanding how these forces interact could reveal profound insights, not just about his mission, but about the hidden mechanisms of spiritual embodiment itself. Write in the comments, "I believe in the convergence." Cayce's revelations suggest that the concealment of Jesus' true birthplace was not a matter of oversight or forgotten history. It was a deliberate act of protection. The forces aligned to bring his incarnation into being were matched, as they always are in moments of profound transformation, by opposing forces determined to stop it. If the exact location had been openly known, it could have become a point of vulnerability, a target for energies and influences that sought to distort, delay, or even derail the mission before it could truly begin. This was not simply about political enemies or human antagonists. Cayce hints at currents of resistance that move on both visible and invisible planes, currents that recognize the impact such an arrival could have on the course of humanity's journey. The secrecy extended into the way the story was told. In the apocryphal texts, the writings that never made it into the official canon, there is an almost tangible silence around Bethlehem. Rather than a clear declaration of the location, there is a veil of ambiguity, as though the writers were bound by an unspoken agreement not to reveal too much. These gaps, far from being accidental, appear as carefully placed omissions designed to preserve the integrity of the truth for a time when it could be understood without distortion. One of the most intriguing examples is the Proto-Evangelium of James, a text that offers intimate details of Mary and Joseph's journey, but avoids anchoring the birth to a specific, unmistakable place. The narrative flows through landscapes, encounters, and symbolic moments, but stops short of handing the reader a fixed point on the map. It's as if the story was intentionally written to guide the seeker toward the essence of the event, rather than its physical coordinates. This aligns with Cayce's perspective that the true power of the birth lay not in the geography, but in the spiritual architecture surrounding it, a convergence of forces, a field of energy prepared with precision, and a set of conditions that could not be easily replicated. Behind the scenes, this method of storytelling served a dual purpose. On one hand, it fulfilled the need to pass the story through generations, preserving the core truths of divine intervention and prophetic fulfillment. On the other, it acted as a safeguard, ensuring that the physical site remained untouched, its energy undisturbed, until the right moment in humanity's evolution. In this light, the omissions are not flaws. They are guardians. It's worth considering how often in our own lives truth is preserved, not by being loudly proclaimed, but by being quietly protected. There are moments when timing and readiness matter more than raw disclosure, when a hidden truth can do more to preserve potential than an exposed one. Cayce's interpretation suggests that the early keepers of this knowledge understood that revealing too much, too soon, could diminish the very transformation it was meant to spark. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if these silences in the apocryphal texts are intentional, then they may not just be protecting the past, they could be pointing toward a future moment when the location, the energy, and the hidden story will be revealed in full. Write in the comments, "I understand the silence." Cayce's perspective suggests that the earliest followers of Christ were not ignorant of the true circumstances surrounding his birth. They were protectors of it. In the fragile years after the Incarnation, when the memory was still fresh and the movement still vulnerable, these early Christians understood that sacred knowledge had to be shielded. To speak plainly about the location would have been to expose it to those who might desecrate it, drain its energy, or twist its meaning for their own gain. And so, the truth was layered beneath symbolism, wrapped in imagery that could travel across cultures and centuries without revealing its most precious details. Bethlehem, in this sense, became more than a place. It became a vessel, a word that could hold prophecy without betraying the deeper reality. To the masses, it offered a tangible anchor for faith, something they could picture, visit, and pass down in story. But to those initiated into the hidden truth, Bethlehem was a code, a stand-in for something far more powerful and precise. This dual-layered storytelling allowed the message to spread without losing the integrity of the original event. It was a strategic choice, one that kept the essence alive while keeping the details beyond the reach of those not yet ready to receive them. But Cayce draws us toward an even more startling revelation, that Egypt, often remembered as a place of refuge in the early years of Jesus' life, was in fact the spiritual origin point of his mission. In this telling, Egypt wasn't where the Holy Family fled for safety. It was where the incarnation had been prepared, and, according to Cayce, where it had taken place. This shifts the entire framework of the story. Instead of being a side chapter in the gospel narrative, Egypt becomes the foundation stone, the cradle that merged divine intention with the ancient currents of wisdom preserved for millennia. The connection to Isis and Osiris is not incidental. In the mysteries of Egypt, these figures embodied the cycles of death, rebirth, and divine kingship. Their temples, rituals, and mythologies were repositories of knowledge about the soul's journey through realms seen and unseen. By situating Jesus' birth within this context, Cayce ties him into a lineage of spiritual science that reaches back to civilizations we barely comprehend. It's not just a religious link. It's a continuity of purpose. Egypt's cosmic mysteries, its star alignments, its temple initiations, its understanding of the interplay between spirit and matter, formed the energetic and symbolic framework into which the Christ could be born. From this vantage point, the journey to Egypt later in Jesus' life was not an escape, but a return, a re-entry into the environment that had shaped his arrival. This also reframes our understanding of the prophecies, suggesting that they might have been less about pinpointing a city and more about marking a specific vibrational field on the earth. It's a reminder that sometimes the map is not meant to lead us to a building or a landmark, but to a frequency, a state of resonance that holds the true key. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if Egypt was truly the origin point of the incarnation, then the knowledge preserved in its temples and myths may still carry the blueprint of how such a convergence of divine purpose and earthly preparation can happen again. Write in the comments, "I see the code in the symbol." Cayce's depiction of Jesus' earliest moments in Egypt paints a picture of sacred preparation that transcends the usual understanding of infancy. He describes the temples not as passive sanctuaries, but as active instruments, spaces meticulously constructed to hold and transmit specific vibrational frequencies. Within these walls, the air itself was charged with intention, infused with the echoes of chants, symbols carved into stone, and geometric alignments that mirrored the harmony of the cosmos. These were places designed to awaken what Cayce called cosmic memory, the deep, encoded knowledge a soul carries from its origin across lifetimes and dimensions. In such an environment, protection wasn't just physical, it was energetic. The Christ consciousness, newly anchored in human form, required a field of resonance that could sustain its purity against the dense and often disruptive vibrations of the earthly plane. These temples provided exactly that, acting as both shield and amplifier. They ensured that from the very first breath, the mission unfolding through Jesus would remain aligned with its original purpose, untouched by distortions that could come from premature exposure to the chaos of the world. What's striking in Cayce's account is the way Jesus is said to have absorbed wisdom. This was not a matter of formal lessons or rote memorization. It was a process of spiritual osmosis, a constant, seamless infusion of knowledge through the vibrational codes embedded in the space, the rituals, and the people who surrounded him. It's as though his consciousness was attuned to receive these frequencies without needing translation, bypassing the limitations of language entirely. The truths he carried were not learned in the way we understand learning. They were awakened. This awakening drew not only from the Egyptian tradition, but from a tapestry of lineages stretching far beyond one culture or land. Cayce places Jesus at the intersection of Jewish prophecy, Egyptian sacred science, Atlantean wisdom, and the broader currents of universal spiritual law. Each tradition contributed a thread to the fabric of his mission. The Jewish heritage grounded him in the prophetic and covenantal history of a people whose destiny was intertwined with the arrival of the Messiah. The Egyptian mysteries equipped him with the practical and metaphysical knowledge of energy, initiation, and the bridging of worlds. The Atlantean legacy, though largely lost to recorded history, connected him to an ancient understanding of human potential and the cycles of planetary transformation. And the universal traditions, those timeless truths that surface across cultures, positioned him as a teacher, not limited to one faith, one people, or one era. Seen in this way, Jesus was never meant to be the exclusive property of a single religion. His heritage was a convergence of civilizations, a deliberate weaving of wisdom traditions to create a figure capable of uniting what had been separated for millennia. Cayce's account reframes him not only as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies, but as the living embodiment of a global spiritual legacy, a bridge between worlds, cultures, and epochs. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if his early life was shaped by this seamless integration of wisdom and energy, then it means the blueprint for such a unifying mission still exists, and it may hold the key to the kind of transformation humanity is being called to embrace today. Write in the comments, "The wisdom is awakening." Cayce's descriptions of the Watchers add an entirely new dimension to the story of the Incarnation. These were not merely symbolic figures or metaphors for divine guidance. They were actual beings from higher realms, conscious intelligences, whose role was to protect sacred portals and ensure that divine missions unfolded without interference. They operated beyond the limitations of human perception, moving between dimensions, orchestrating events, and holding the energetic boundaries necessary for such a rare and powerful descent of consciousness into human form. Their vigilance was constant, not only during the moment of birth but in the long preparation leading up to it. The choice of the birthplace was the result of this meticulous oversight. This was not simply about picking a location with historical or prophetic significance. It was about harmonizing the deepest energetic currents of the earth with the celestial patterns above. The site itself was a rare intersection where planetary ley lines, magnetic fields, and cosmic alignments converged to create a space of perfect resonance. In such a place, the veil between worlds is thinner, the flow of energy between dimensions is smoother, and the conditions for embodiment are optimal. Any other location, no matter how holy by tradition, would not have carried the same frequency needed to sustain the mission's integrity. But the Watchers' preparations extended far beyond the land. Cayce speaks of them readying Mary's womb in a way that transcends biological explanation. This wasn't merely about ensuring a healthy pregnancy, it was about attuning her very being to hold the vibration of the Christ consciousness. Every aspect of her physical, emotional, and spiritual body was aligned for the task. Her energy field had to be stabilized, her inner space cleansed of any discordant frequencies, and her own soul's contract brought into full harmony with what was to come. In a sense, Mary herself became a living temple, an extension of the sacred space chosen for the birth. The Watchers also worked with the land itself, adjusting the region's magnetic field so that the incoming soul could anchor fully without distortion. This is a concept modern science is only beginning to explore, the idea that certain geomagnetic conditions can affect consciousness and even the functioning of the human body. For the Watchers, this was already understood as a critical factor. They shaped the environment so that every element, the minerals in the soil, the air's composition, the subtle electromagnetic patterns, was tuned to receive and protect the light that was about to enter the world. Behind the scenes, this level of preparation was not an act of control, but of service. The Watchers' role was to safeguard free will while ensuring that the original intention of the mission could manifest without being corrupted by lower vibrations or hostile forces. Their work was precise, delicate, and completely invisible to those without the eyes to see it. Yet without their guardianship, the Incarnation might have been met with obstacles so great that the mission's full potential could never have unfolded. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if such beings were truly involved in aligning both the human vessel and the Earth's energetic grid, it raises profound questions about how many other moments in history have been quietly guided in the same way. Write in the comments, "The Guardians were here." Cayce's account reminds us that whenever a force of profound light enters the world, it does not do so uncontested. He speaks of dense opposing energies, currents that work tirelessly to preserve the status quo, to keep humanity bound to patterns of limitation and forgetfulness. These energies recognize the incarnation of the Christ not merely as the arrival of a great teacher, but as the ignition of a transformation that could unravel their influence over human thought and destiny. In that sense, the stakes were not just theological, they were cosmic. If this mission succeeded, the very fabric of reality, on both a personal and planetary level, would shift. It was for this reason that secrecy was not just a choice, but a necessity. The exact location, the preparations, the guardians, all of it had to remain hidden behind layers of symbolism and misdirection. The light being born was more than a child. It was a concentrated seed of divine frequency, and like any precious seed, it required protection during its most vulnerable stage. The Watchers and those in alignment with them worked tirelessly to cloak the truth, creating a narrative that could be accepted by the masses while keeping the deeper reality shielded from those who might use it to cause harm. Cayce's description of the birth as an interdimensional event makes this even more remarkable. This was not confined to a single time and place. It was a coordinated operation spanning multiple realms of existence, each contributing to the success of the incarnation. On the physical plane, it appeared as a birth, humble and human. On the spiritual planes, it was a convergence of vast intelligences, the opening of a portal through which higher consciousness could anchor itself into material form. And, beyond even that, it was an act of cosmic synchronization, aligning celestial mechanics, planetary energies, and soul-level agreements in a way that may happen only once in many thousands of years. The choice to allow Bethlehem to stand as the official birthplace was a masterstroke of spiritual strategy. It became a symbolic veil, an image the world could hold on to, a story that could sustain faith across generations, even if it wasn't literally true. Cayce's insight here is not to diminish Bethlehem's role, but to show how symbols can serve as containers for truth until humanity is ready to open them. For earlier ages, this symbol was enough. It carried the essence of the prophecy, kept the flame of belief alive, and avoided revealing a reality that could have been too disruptive for the consciousness of the time. Now, however, the veils are thinning. The hidden truths that once needed protection are beginning to surface, not to replace faith, but to expand it. Cayce invites us to consider that humanity's readiness is not measured by collective agreement, but by the number of individuals willing to embrace a deeper, more complex picture of reality. It's a shift in mindset, a movement from clinging to comforting simplicity toward engaging with the layered, often paradoxical nature of divine action. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if the incarnation was truly a multi-realm collaboration hidden behind symbolic narratives, then uncovering its mechanisms could help us understand not just the past, but the very way divine intention continues to shape our world today. Write in the comments, "I see beyond the veil." Cayce's view transforms the Nativity from a historical episode into a living, ongoing process. In his telling, Jesus was not born solely to fulfill ancient prophecy or to establish a new religion. He was born to open portals within the human spirit itself. These are not physical gateways, but inner thresholds, dormant until awakened, through which each person can access their own divine potential. This changes everything. It shifts the focus from an event we commemorate once a year to an invitation that is active in every moment of our lives. The Christ presence becomes less about a figure we admire from a distance and more about a state of being we are meant to embody. From this perspective, the incarnation was not the end of preparation. It was the beginning of a chain reaction. The energy anchored at his birth was like a seed planted into the collective soul of humanity, a seed that carries the potential for a vast transformation of consciousness. But as Cayce suggests, this potential is not automatic. It asks something of us. It calls for a shift in mindset, a willingness to transcend the limitations of inherited narratives, and to step into a more direct, personal relationship with the divine. This is why Cayce insists we revisit the story with spiritual vision. When stripped of political agendas, religious, dogma, and the distortions of time, the birth of Jesus reveals itself as a multi-layered act of alignment between heaven and earth. It was not confined to the politics of the Roman Empire, nor to the traditions of a single people. It was, and remains, a planetary event. To see it clearly, we must be willing to set aside the desire for certainty about dates and locations, and instead engage with the deeper reality that the true birthplace of Christ is as much within us as it ever was in the physical world. This idea challenges the way we usually approach history. We're trained to look for evidence in ruins, artifacts, and documents. Yet Cayce's message is that the most important proof of Christ's origin is not external at all. It is in the quiet moments when something within us stirs, when we feel a pull toward compassion, truth, and unity that goes beyond our personal story. These are signs that the inner birthplace is active, that the same light which once entered the world through a carefully prepared portal is now seeking to awaken within us. Seen in this light, the search for the real location of the Nativity becomes symbolic of a deeper quest. We can explore the sands of Egypt, the stones of Bethlehem, or the hidden chambers beneath ancient temples, but the most profound discovery will always be the point within where the human and the divine meet. This is not a metaphor for self-improvement. It's a recognition of our capacity to host something sacred, to let it move through us in ways that change not only our lives, but the fabric of the world around us. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because if the true birthplace is a living reality within us, then understanding how to open and sustain that inner portal might be the most important journey we can take in this lifetime. Write in the comments, "The light is within me." If you've stayed with me all the way to this point, you already know this wasn't just a story about the past, it was a journey into the layers of meaning that still speak to us right now. If you enjoy exploring these kinds of deeper truths and seeing how they connect to your own path, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next conversations we have here. And if you've reached the end with me, let me know in the comments by writing, "I'm with you until the end." It's always powerful to see how many of us are walking this path together. If you felt a connection today, tap the like button. It helps this message reach others who might be looking for the same light. There's a video right here that complements everything we've just explored. Click and continue with me over there.